A man in an effort to save money actually pulled open his girlfriend's shirt collar and instructed her to flirt with the ticket inspector so that they could get in for free. So Mary walked up to the inspector, asked for a cigarette, and then said that she had brought two friends to ski. Not only were they beautiful, but they were also single. The inspector, hearing this, immediately agreed to let them in. But when he saw what Mary claimed were her friends, he was shocked. He felt insulted. Seeing that the inspector was unhappy, the three quickly hopped onto the ski lift and headed up. They spent the whole day skiing and had a great time, but by evening they wanted to go for another round. However, the inspector stopped them as his shift was about to end. But because of Mary's pleading, the inspector finally relented and allowed them to take the lift again. The three got on the ski lift and started their ride, unaware that this decision would lead them to disaster. Not long after, a colleague arrived to take over the shift. The inspector told him to wait for the last three people to come down before he could clock out. But just as the inspector walked away, the three had already skied down. The colleague assumed that it was them and immediately cut the power to the lift. Within moments, all the ski lifts stopped operating. At that moment, a light shone from behind them. It was a snowplow coming up the mountain for a routine check. The three of them waved and shouted for help. The snowplow stopped below them, but just as quickly it started reversing. The driver hadn't heard their calls as the wind had muffled their shouts. Moreover, the driver had just received a retreat order. A blizzard was approaching. They were now completely hopeless. Hours passed and finally the blizzard stopped. But by then Mary's face was severely frostbitten. If they stayed any longer, the consequences would be even worse. Jack, unwilling to just wait for death, decided to jump off the ski lift. He pushed past the guardrails and leaped off the lift, only to land and break his legs. He urged John to come up with a way to help him. John decided to climb the lift cables and reach the pole, hoping to descend from there. However, he hadn't climbed very far before he stopped, seeing a terrifying sight. He quickly climbed back down and returned to the lift. John told Mary not to look down because Jack had already been surrounded by wolves. Hearing Jack's screams from below, Mary completely broke down. Time passed slowly and snow started falling again. John knew that if things continued this way, they would all die. After much effort, John finally reached the pole. He climbed down the ladder and ran toward the skis. Grabbing them, he began skiing down the mountain. To his horror, the wolves were still chasing him. That night, Mary remained stuck on the ski lift. She could see that Jack's body was already covered by snow, signaling that the snowpack was getting thicker. So she jumped off the lift. At that moment, the screws finally gave way and the lift dropped, striking her calf. Using every ounce of strength she had, Mary managed to crawl to the roadside. Soon a passerby found her.